Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today celebrating the release of the Dark Archives with the Dark Archive. And by that, I mean the faction of the Pathfinder Society, not the book. There are plenty of channels going through this bad boy, but I want to speak a bit on the historical context. With the slight caveat that society play is not exactly my specialty, so this is not going to be as largely in-depth as I might have wished, but it will give you a pretty picture of the history of the group up until the archives closed down. And our friend here took these 8 case files with him. So let's see where we currently stand, shall we? I need to get into some Pathfinder history to start out here. So first, let's get into the state of the Pathfinder Society around 4708 AR, when 1E started. Here, the Pathfinder Society, which started as an adventuring guild, had grown for 500 years, where they went and expanded traveling and finding adventure and treasure across the entire Inner Sea region and beyond. But even technically an organization beyond nations, willing to welcome anyone willing to join the adventure. That did not mean nations did not have a say in the workings of the organization. After all, their lifestyle takes money, and sometimes the artifacts found do not recoup the price used to find them. This allowed the 5 most influential countries in the Inner Sea region at the time to have a decent amount of influence over the organization, using it to expand its own influence. These nations were Taldor, Kadira, Osirian, Andoran, and Cheliax. Cheliax is the one important one for us today. To the Chelish, the resources of the Pathfinder Society were the perfect chance to spread their own goals across the Inner Sea region. And by their own goals, I mean diabolism and worship of Asmodeus. They used their faction to slowly spread the word of hell across the Inner Sea region, and of House Thun, not always fully aligned goals. Either way, the faction would gain allies with promises of wealth and power, and then keep people in line with the lash. The leader of the faction was a woman by the name of Paracountess Zalfa Drelnine, a noblewoman of Cheliax who was also their diplomatic envoy to Absalom at the time. She was known for both being able to make her way through high society, as well as leverage her charms and diabolic powers to manipulate others. She was famed for throwing extravagant parties for the purpose of trading secrets among her guests during the times of hedonism. She was also, at the time, a loyal subject to House Thun. But times change. Disorder from the ranks of the Pathfinders caused factions to form and factions to fade. And the Chelish faction was no exception. Zalfa Drelnine was accused of disloyalty to the throne and was imprisoned. She was saved by members of the faction, but she was effectively burned, and burned in such a way there was no way to easily reverse it by those who were responsible, much less by her as the victim. And so she found herself thrown out into the cold, with no way to return to Cheliax's good graces. But she was not alone, because she was a Pathfinder. Despite her faction having been the token evil teammates of the society, she was still one of them. And so the Chelish faction did not fall apart, but instead left Cheliax behind. During this time, agents of her faction managed to secure powerful artifacts, the kind to harm the society's enemies while also protecting themselves from attacks. And in no time at all, the remains of the faction had shown that those in charge of the society that they were competent and trustworthy to handle dangerous artifacts. And so they were given authority over all the dangerous artifacts under the society's control, to categorize and keep hidden away. And so, from the rubble of an old faction, arose the Dark Archive. Soon the Dark Archive became the premier branch of all dangerous relics, secretive lore, and other things which best remain in the dark, while all the other branches were busy fighting about politics and money and the like. Of course, that is not saying that they were a moral branch of the society. They were still former Chiliacs, still made of what were the most ruthless of the Pathfinders. It's just that they were fully loyal to the Pathfinders as opposed to the Devil Worshippers. They were lawful evil. It's not going to stop them from using a few of the artifacts they find for, well, their own benefits. But it means that they are probably one of the most loyal and trustworthy branches when it comes to what their priorities would be. But of course, time makes changes. After so much infighting within the society, they summoned the spirits of the founders to ask what their original goals for the Pathfinders were, with new factions opening up based on this meeting, and old ones closing down. And so the Dark Archives were archived away. Zartha still spends time in the area beneath the Grand Lodge, around a still existing physical location, which is the Dark Archive. And as recently as the Lost Owens book on Absalom, we have mentioned that she still keeps to her old routine and manipulations of easily tempted men, and is still considered one of the most knowledgeable in forbidden lore in the city. However, she seems to hold no leadership position, and the faction has been split among the new factions, though most likely shifted into the studious Grand Archive, and the Guardians Against Dark forces known as the Vigilant Seal. If those members remain with the Pathfinders at all, as our mysterious Mr. Q is possibly not the only one-of-a-kind deserter. And that would be this week's video. It's on the shorter side, but it tells one enough to understand the Dark Archive, and it gives me plenty of time to get started on this bad boy. Next week is another God video. I hope to see you all then. And I hope you all enjoyed this new book. I'll not be doing a 2-month event if I was not excited for it myself. But either way, enjoy your week.